Blackberries hatch, chiming up my window. Blackberries hatch, reaching with a thorn. My head though goes with the blackbird song. I must move on.
Welcome guys, so this is going to be a very different video in the Ask Shane series, but something I really wanted to share with you. I was kind of sitting here, I was looking out the window, and you can see the light behind me, you know, that low autumn sunshine, and the trees were moving, the wind was kind of rustling. It was just a beautiful autumn moment, and I kind of thought back, you know, and the sun is low in the sky, you know, those evenings are definitely drawing in, you know, those darker evenings are arriving, and my mind was wandering back to an experience that I had last autumn, one that has taken a fair bit of time to process and understand. And with All Hallowed Eve approaching, you know, many people may ask, are witches real? Damn right they are, and here's why I know how. This is something that I wrote around about a year ago, okay? I'm just going to share it with you. And it's a story, okay, based on an experience I had with this incredible person that I had the privilege to work with. So it was a night that started like many others, yet finished unlike any. It reached 6 p.m. and I sat there and I was gazing out like the window as I was earlier, gazing out at the dark sky and the last remains of light. And I think that's the thing, was that this morning and again this afternoon, the light and the leaves within the trees triggered a memory of last autumn. And that last remains of light forming shapes around the trees, casting those shadows. And it was feeling a lot like winter. So last autumn, this kind of time, was feeling a lot like winter. And there was a cold wind blowing from the north. But inside the comfort of my room and its warm surroundings, I watched over the room, as I have for so many evenings, watching and waiting for the departed to meet me with their presence. I turned once again to the window, and the sound of the clock gently holding space and time. I gazed deeply at the tops of the bare trees. I should have known the innate was already talking to me, whispering in an ancient language, an ancient wisdom that modern life had long forgotten and would rarely understand. A language of sisterhood, Magik, and the goddess. The trees seemed different tonight, as if they were whispering in the cold north wind. A full moon approaching within days, yet the sky was dark, black, and everything seemed hidden. Mysterious. Now I was expecting two ladies, two friends, one after the other. An hour passed. The first consultation, fascinating, around her home and its colourful history. Houses do indeed have a memory, almost interwoven into the fabric of the walls. And then the second lady, the door knocked, and there she stood with jet black raven hair and a knowing smile. that looked into me. And I remember at the time that was slightly unnerving. It was this sense she was looking into me, and it was almost like being on the reverse, of myself, being on the receiving end of myself. It was like a mirror. A knowing smile that looked into me, looked at me, yet into me. Slightly familiar and unnerving all at once. It was really unnerving, but yet it was familiar. Her eyes had otherworldly feeling to them. She really felt to me very otherworldly. She looked deeply into me and we sat together. There are those who would love to do the work of the innate. I've always kind of felt that, there's those that would like to do the work of the innate, and there are those who are designed to. She was by design. This was by design. A stream of ancestral energy flowed towards her. I can really feel this sense of not just spirit, but this sense of ancestral energy flowing towards her. I felt a deep reverence towards my guest. I was very aware that I was in the presence of an old soul, a teacher. I felt that deep reverence towards my guest. She was more than who appeared in front of me. That ancestral energy that flowed towards her had come from a line of mothers and grandmothers, handing from one generation to the next. Then, as if there was a flash, I saw her standing in a grove of dark trees. She was so at home, standing among the darkness, standing among the night. Silhouette of trees and a pathway that led back to an old stone cottage and beyond towards the graves of her ancestors. I will, I say out loud, acknowledging Spirit's words and thoughts as the departed talked to me. And I remember seeing that. Image of this pathway and this stone cottage set back within a copse of trees, and then really kind of feeling that beyond it was graves of her grandmothers and the line of generations, and that as if she was watching over that place. And it was an image that comes so clearly. The silhouette of the trees and the pathway that led back to an old stone cottage and beyond towards the graves of her ancestors. I will, I say out loud, acknowledging Spirit's words and thoughts as the departed talk to me. Before I can pass it on, she looks again, straight at me and gently yet firmly into me. There's a Chinaman with you, an old, ancient Chinaman. I was shocked. She was correct. He stands next to me. She told me he was standing right next to me. Yes, I replied. Ancient wisdom, 500 years old, I smile, yet shocked, nervous almost. It was very true. It was my old friend and guide from early on my journey and my path. Someone that I called Kun Shen, who later I found out his name translates to heaven meets earth. Had first seen him a very long time ago. His wisdom simple yet full of depth. It was so lovely to have his presence acknowledged. Yet that's only ever happened on rare occasions. And in my experience, he has never ever shown himself to just anyone. She smiled again knowingly. That was quite unnerving, her smile, to be honest with you. He said to me, your face changes. She said, he speaks through you. She pointed to the other side of the room and said, he comes from the east, he's eastern. My room has no trace of his influence whatsoever. My room's kind of actually quite Celtic in origin, you know, the things around me are very Celtic within origin. There's no trace of him. There's no trace of his influence. That was purely by chance, yet by design. She cannot have known. This was real, she was real. Once again I see her standing in the grove of trees, and an ancient, lost, forgotten magic with a K, pulsing through her veins, a stream of consciousness from then flowing towards her in the now. I'd seen a snapshot of her ancestral lineage. I'd seen an insight into her past beyond this life. This was ancient witchcraft. I describe what I see, and I know, and I look into her, knowingly, firm yet gentle, and I say to her, "You are a witch." She smiles and laughs and looks back at me with warmth, yet once again deeply into me. "Yes. And you know," she says, "when you've been marked. You have been marked. You've been marked by a witch." I didn't even know what that meant. Unnerved, but yet feeling the warmth coming from her. The atmosphere changed. It was as if the kind of unknown, untangible stream of consciousness sat surrounding us, as if ancient, and I mean ancient, magic filled the room. My mind raced, marked and to be marked by a witch. Witch marks some witches are born with. But my understanding went on that to be marked by a witch was a transferring of wisdom, a transferring of knowledge, a transferring of experience. It was as if it was being passed on to me, as if somehow it was being streamed towards me from that ancestral line. And I remember feeling very kind of blown away by the experience, slightly unnerved. For days following, I had very, very strange dreams. And then it kind of felt as if it had integrated, the experience had integrated inside of me. But it's taken a whole cycle of time to really kind of ground. And I know it's being played out now, you know, it's almost as if those ancient experiences that run deeply within us have also been awakened in me. You know, I've always had a calling towards the runes and the ancient places. You know, I've always made pilgrimage to them. You know, I've walked the land, I've rode the land, I have an affinity with the land. I've had a calling towards, you know, the old ways and towards Odin. As if that experience is really firmly awakened it, but not only has it awakened it, it's allowed it to kind of really land in a very kind of very, very, very solid way. Really, really solid way. I really wanted to kind of share that experience with you, and we're leading towards All Hallowed Eve, and you know, these kind of things are, you know, within our awareness, within our consciousness. And you know, my next video that'll come out next week, and be kind of talking about some of the traditions of All Hallow Eve, i.e. the Biss and Broom. You know, again, there's association to the witch. to the wand, to even I'm going to talk about, what are spells, okay? And some of you going back would have heard me talk about, spells and what is it and why is it when we first go to school that we learn how to spell. So what we're talking about is the power of language and the power of words and the power of intent, which is what spell casting is. Okay, so we're going to weave some of that together next week, but I really wanted to share that experience with you, and it was very raw, and I remember writing that a few days after the experience, and it's certainly my hand that's wrote that, but the energy that's come through from the experience has really brought that together and really kind of wrote that, if that makes sense to you. But I thought you might be kind of fascinated by that, and it was a very, very powerful experience, one that I can still see clearly in my mind. Those of you that are interested in kind of finding a little bit more about that, if you jump onto my Facebook page, Spirit Meets Adventure, you will see the latest blog. Okay, so you'll see the latest blog, and I kind of also share a really nice article about Our Rich is Real, and I kind of go on to say, and some of it you'll really kind of resonate with. Have you ever had a vivid dream about someone only for you to bump into them the very next day? Consider that as your intuition burning really bright. When you're overwhelmed and stressed, do you ever turn I love this one. Do you ever turn a bathtub into a cauldron? Okay, I know a good friend of mine that would absolutely do this, who is a herbal witch through and through. We was talking about Odin recently, and she was making reference to, James Bond, and she said, well, let's face it, James Bond is a bit of a pussy compared to Odin. It just had me in hysterics, and I think that's the thing, is within those experiences we hold great reverence to them, but it's also this sense of, joyfulness and celebrating life, and that's what I like about those kind of old traditions and those old paths to be followed. They're about absolutely celebrating life fully. So I absolutely know someone that would turn their bathtub into a cauldron by filling it with soothing salts, perhaps lighting some candles to further set the mood. That's a self-love spell if I've ever seen one. Or have you ever found yourself in an overly cluttered apartment thinking, I just have to tidy up and change the energy in here? Look at you performing cleansing rituals. Witches are real, That experience I had lives on within inside of me. Those of you that want to kind of learn a little bit more, explore a little bit more, you can jump onto the Facebook page, and you'll find the article there, 9 myths about witchcraft, about modern witchcraft. But yeah, I really wanted to share that with you. We are moving towards All Hallowed Eve, and as we get into next week, I'll be sharing some of the practical aspects of around the Bison Broom. We'll explore what All Hallow Eve is about for me, at least, what it could be about for you, and what is spell casting, and where does it come from. I'm going to leave that with you. I hope you've enjoyed that. As always, any questions, feel free to comment below, and I'll be seeing you all very soon. Take care, guys. Bye bye.